Captain Jenna Ekin strode onto the bridge of the TSS Odyssey, her boots clicking sharply on the metal deck. The chatter of the crew quieted as all eyes turned to her expectantly. "Status report," she barked, taking her seat in the command chair. "All systems nominal, Captain," replied Commander Zach Thompson, her first officer. "We're on course for the Arcturus system, ETA 6 hours. Jenna nodded, her eyes scanning the holographic displays surrounding her. The Odyssey was a state-of-the-art explorer vessel, outfitted with the latest in Terran technology. Her mission was to chart new star systems on the fringes of human space, seeking out habitable worlds and valuable resources, but today something felt different. A strange energy seemed to permeate the ship, setting Jenna's senses on edge. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but her instincts told her that this would be no ordinary mission. Her musings were interrupted by a sudden shout from the sensor officer, Lieutenant Kai Nakamura. "Captain, I'm picking up an unknown contact, bearing 227 Mark 19. It just appeared out of nowhere." Jenna leaned forward, her gaze sharpening on the screen. The main view screen shimmered, resolving into an image that made Jenna's breath catch in her throat. Floating in the void was a massive alien vessel, easily dwarfing the Odyssey. Its hull was covered in strange, organic-looking protrusions, pulsing with an eerie bioluminescence. "My God," whispered Commander Thompson. "I've never seen anything like it." Jenna felt a thrill of both fear and excitement course through her. This was it, humanity's first contact with an alien species, the moment they had been preparing for since the dawn of the space age. She took a deep breath, composing herself. "Hail them," she ordered, her voice steady. There was a tense pause as the comm officer sent out the standard first contact package, broadcasting it on all frequencies. Then, to everyone's shock, a deep, rumbling voice filled the bridge. "Greetings, humans of the Terran Confederacy. I am Supreme Overlord Krax of the Vortex Imperium. Your species has been judged and found wanting. Prepare to be assimilated into our glorious empire." Jenna's blood ran cold as the implications sank in. This was no peaceful first contact. It was an invasion. The alien ship loomed closer on the screen, its weapons ports glowing ominously. She slammed her hand down on the arm of her chair, activating the ship-wide intercom. "Battle stations," she roared. "This is not a drill, I repeat, battle stations." As klaxons began to blare and the crew scrambled to their posts, Jenna gritted her teeth in determination. The Odyssey might be outmatched, but she would not go down without a fight. The very future of humanity was at stake. Little did she know that this was only the beginning of a conflict that would reshape the galaxy, with the scrappy underdogs of Earth facing off against an overwhelming alien threat. The odds were stacked against them, but one thing was certain: humanity would not yield. They would fight to their last breath, united as one against the invaders. It was time to show the universe what humans were truly made of, time to make the aliens rue the day they challenged the indomitable spirit of Earth. The battle for mankind's survival starts now. Captain Ekin gripped the armrest of her chair as the Odyssey shuddered under the impact of the alien weaponry. Sparks flew from overloaded consoles, and the acrid stench of fried electronics filled the air. "Shields down to 40%, shouted Lieutenant Mel Petro, the tactical officer. "Hull breaches on decks 7 and 12. Jenna cursed under her breath. The Vortex ship was pummeling them mercilessly, its advanced technology far outclassing their own, but she refused to give up. "Divert all auxiliary power to the shields," she ordered, "and ready the plasma torpedoes. We'll hit them with everything we've got." The crew worked frantically to carry out her commands, their faces grim with determination. They knew the odds of survival were slim, but they would go down fighting like true Terrans. Jenna's mind raced, trying to formulate a strategy. The alien vessel was heavily armored, its shields shrugging off their attacks like raindrops, but every ship had a weakness. They just had to find it. Suddenly, an idea struck her. It was a desperate gamble, but it might just work. "Helm, plot a collision course with the enemy ship," she barked. "Full speed ahead." Commander Thompson gaped at her in shock. Captain, are you insane? We'll be destroyed. Jenna met his gaze unflinchingly. We're dead either way, Zach. But if we can take them with us, it might just give the rest of the fleet a fighting chance. Thompson hesitated for a moment, then nodded grimly. Aye, Captain. It's been an honor serving with you. As the Odyssey hurtled towards the Vortex vessel like a spear of retribution, Jenna addressed the crew over the intercom. Attention, all hands, this is the captain. We are about to ram the enemy ship. Brace for impact, and prepare to abandon ship on my order. She paused, emotion welling up in her throat. These brave men and women, her loyal crew, they had followed her to the very gates of hell. And now, she would lead them on a suicide mission to strike one last blow against the invaders. I know I'm asking the impossible of you, she continued, her voice rough. But remember, we're Terran. We don't back down. We don't surrender. We fight to the bitter end. And if we die today, we die as heroes defending our people. No matter what happens, I'm proud to have served with each and every one of you. A chorus of cheers and battle cries erupted over the comm as the crew responded to her words. They were afraid, but they were also filled with a fierce, unbreakable spirit. They would meet their end like true warriors. Jenna closed her eyes for a moment, picturing Earth. The green hills of her childhood home, the majestic towers of the great cities reaching towards the sky, everything she had sworn to protect. For Earth, she whispered. For humanity. Then, as the alien ship loomed before them like a monstrous leviathan, she gave the order. All hands, abandon ship. I repeat, abandon ship. Escape pods blasted away from the doomed Odyssey as it rammed the Vortex vessel in a blinding flash of light. The impact shattered the enemy's shields like glass and sent cracks racing along its hull. For a moment, it seemed like the sacrifice had been in vain. But then, in a glorious burst of flame, the alien ship exploded into a million fragments. Against all odds, the humans had struck the first victorious blow. The battle was far from over, but now the invaders knew the true mettle of their foe. On the bridge of the Vortex flagship, Supreme Overlord Krax snarled in rage as he watched the Odyssey's final moments. The bioluminescent patterns on his chitinous skin flared blood red, betraying his anger. Impudent primates, he roared. They dare defy the might of the Imperium? They shall pay for this insolence with their lives. He whirled to face his subordinates, his eyes blazing with malice. Summon the Armada. We will crush these humans and grind their wretched planet to dust. None shall stand against the Vortex. All will be assimilated. As the alien fleet gathered, a darkness fell over the galaxy. The war had begun in earnest, pitting the valiant defenders of Earth against a ruthless empire bent on conquest. But the humans would not face this threat alone. On distant worlds, long-lost human colony ships and breakaway civilizations intercepted the news of the invasion. Many had diverged from the Terran Confederacy centuries ago, becoming spacefaring nations and galactic powers in their own right. Now, as the specter of annihilation loomed, ancient grudges and rivalries would have to be set aside. The children of Earth must stand together against the alien menace, or fall divided. Aboard the sleek warship Retribution, Admiral Elena Ivanova of the Novaya Rus Imperium frowned at the battle reports from the Arcturus sector. Her people had fought long and hard to carve out their own destiny among the stars, free from Terran control, but this was bigger than politics or old grievances. This was about survival. The very future of humanity itself hung in the balance. Set course for Sol, she commanded, her voice hard as steel. It is time we taught these alien scum the fury of the Rus. Meanwhile, on the jungle moon of Gene 11, General Toru Iada of the Yamato Protectorate reviewed the same grim news, his hand clenching into a fist, remembering the sacrifice of the Odyssey and her valiant crew. No more, he vowed. No more would humans die at the hands of alien oppressors. The Protectorate had spent generations honing themselves into a warrior culture, elite soldiers dedicated to defending the innocent. Now, their skills would be put to the ultimate test. Ready the fleet, Iwata growled to his lieutenants. We go to aid our Terran cousins in their hour of need. For the honor of Yamato, we shall fight to the last man. And so, even as the Vortex invasion force descended upon Seoul like a plague of locusts, the lost tribes of man rallied to the banner of their ancestral home. The galaxy would tremble as the full might of humanity was unleashed, a force united and unbreakable. Together, they would stand against the darkness. Together, they would face the fury of the Vortex Imperium. And together, they would show the universe the indomitable spirit of humankind. The fight for Earth had only just begun, but one thing was certain. The aliens would rue the day they challenged the sons and daughters of Seoul. The Vortex Armada descended upon the Seoul system like a swarm of locusts, their organic ships blotting out the stars. Hundreds of vessels, each one a nightmare of pulsing flesh and eldritch technology, all united in their singular purpose, the subjugation of humanity. But the Terrans were ready for them. A ragtag fleet assembled in Earth's orbit, a motley collection of military craft, retrofitted freighters, and civilian ships pressed into service. They were outgunned and outmatched in every way, but they stood firm, ready to defend their homeworld to the last. Leading the defense was the TCS Titan, a massive dreadnought that served as the flagship of the Terran Confederacy. On her bridge, Admiral Nadia Sova surveyed the tactical displays with a grim expression. She was a veteran of countless battles, her face weathered and scarred by years of service, but nothing in her long career had prepared her for the sheer scale of the threat they now faced. They'll be in weapons range in 30 seconds, reported her sensor officer, Lieutenant John Kim. His voice was steady, but Sova could see the fear in his eyes, tracking multiple torpedo locks. Sova nodded, her jaw set with determination. She knew that fear well. It was the same fear that gripped her own heart, the knowledge that they were facing an enemy far beyond their ken. But she also knew that they had no choice. Earth was depending on them. The entire human race was depending on them. All ships engage at will, she ordered, her voice ringing out across the fleet. Protect the evacuation transports at all cost. We must buy time for the civilians to escape. As the alien fleet bore down on them, the Terran ships opened fire, filling the void with streaks of plasma and fusillades of missiles. The Vortex responded in kind, their eldritch weapons tearing through hull and shield alike. The battle was joined, a desperate struggle for survival against impossible odds. Ships on both sides erupted into flames, turned into drifting husks by the brutal onslaught. But for every human vessel lost, the Terrans made the enemy pay dearly. Fighters danced and swirled in a deadly ballet, pitting human skill and tenacity against alien technology. The Vortex craft were fast and maneuverable, able to turn on a dime and unleash devastating close-range attacks. But the Terran pilots were undaunted, meeting the challenge with daring maneuvers and suicidal bravery. "I've got a pack of bandits on my tail," shouted Lieutenant Rachel O'Donnell, her voice crackling over the comm. "Can't shake them." O'Donnell was a rising star in the Confederate Navy, known for her quick reflexes and fearless flying. But even she was hard-pressed to evade the eldritch fighters swarming around her like angry wasps. "Hold on, R.A.," responded her wingman.
Lieutenant Akira Sato.
"I'm coming." Sato hurled his fighter into a dizzying spiral, pushing the craft to its limits as he wove through the chaos of the battlefield. His heart pounded in his chest, adrenaline surging through his veins. This was what he had trained for, what he had dedicated his life to, the defense of Earth no matter the cost. With a burst of cannon fire, he shredded the Vortex ships, harassing O'Donnell into molten fragments. The alien craft exploded in gouts of ichor and shattered chitin, their twisted forms spinning away into the void. "Splash for Sato!" he whooped in triumph, his voice filled with fierce joy. "You're clear, R.A." But the victories were short-lived. For every alien fighter destroyed, a dozen more took its place, an unending tide of chitin and malice. On the bridge of the Titan, Sova gripped the arm of her command chair as the dreadnought shuddered under the impact of enemy fire. The Vortex ships were concentrating their attacks on the Terran flagship, determined to take out the heart of the human resistance. "Shields failing," warned Lieutenant Commander Michael Petro, the tactical officer. His face was pale, his eyes wide with horror as he watched the readings on his display. Hull integrity at critical levels. Sova's eyes blazed with defiance. She would not let the Titan fall, not while a single breath remained in her body. This ship was more than just a vessel of war. It was a symbol of human resilience, a beacon of hope in the darkness. As long as the Titan stood, Earth stood. "Divert all power to weapons," she commanded, her voice hard as steel. "Target their flagship. We'll show these bastards what happens when you mess with Terrans." The Titan's guns roared to life, unleashing a storm of destruction upon the Vortex command ship. Explosions blossomed along its hideous carapace as the human dreadnought poured fire into its hull. The alien vessel shuddered and reeled, its eldritch shields flickering under the onslaught. But even as it took damage, the Vortex flagship fought back with savage fury. Eldritch energies lashed out from its pulsing surface, ripping into the Titan's armor with terrifying ease. Consoles exploded on the bridge, showering the crew with sparks and shrapnel. The stench of burning metal and melting plastic filled the air. Sova gritted her teeth against the pain, feeling blood trickling down her face from a jagged cut on her forehead. Around her, the bridge was a scene of chaos and destruction. The once pristine command center reduced to a smoldering ruin. But even as the Titan buckled under the assault, the rest of the Vortex fleet surged forward, sensing weakness. They fell upon the battered Terran craft like wolves upon wounded prey, their eldritch weapons tearing through hull and shield with horrifying ease. One by one, the human ships succumbed to the relentless assault, consumed by flames or torn apart by the eldritch weaponry of the aliens. The Titan fought to the bitter end, her guns blazing defiantly even as the enemy swarmed over her like ravenous insects. In her final moments, Admiral Sova stood tall and unbowed on the bridge, facing down the onrushing horde. With a snarl of pure, unbridled hatred, she knew that this was the end, that there would be no escape, but she was determined to make the bastards pay for every inch of human blood they spilled. "You may take our lives," she growled into the calm, broadcasting to the entire fleet, her voice rough with pain and exhaustion, but it rang out like a clarion call across the void. "But you'll never take our freedom. We are Terran, and we will fight to the last. Give them hell, boys and girls. Make them pay for every inch." With a final battle cry, the Titan disappeared into a blinding flash of light as her reactor went critical, taking dozens of Vortex ships with her into oblivion. The explosion ripped through the heart of the alien armada, scattering their formation and buying precious time for the beleaguered human fleet. Across the Sol system, the remnants of the Terran forces fought on with desperate fury, selling their lives dearly to cover the evacuation of Earth. Millions of civilians fled in a ragtag collection of ships, watching in horror as their homeworld burned behind them. The once verdant globe was now a seething cauldron of fire and death, its cities reduced to ash and its oceans boiling under the onslaught of the Vortex weapons. But even as the Terrans reeled from the devastating blow, new allies arrived to join the fray. The forces of the Novaya Rus Imperium and the Yamato Protectorate, ancient rivals of the Terran Confederacy, now fought side by side with their estranged kin, united by a common threat. Sleek Rus battleships and nimble Yamato cruisers tore into the alien armada with a vengeance, exacting a terrible toll for every human life lost. The skill and courage of their crews were the stuff of legends, their ships the product of centuries of warfare and innovation. The Rus were known for their indomitable spirit and their mastery of close-quarters combat, their ships bristling with batteries of short-range plasma cannons and swarms of assault drones. They threw themselves into the fray with reckless abandon, their battle cries echoing across the comm channels as they grappled with the Vortex ships in brutal melee. The Yamato, by contrast, favored precision and finesse, striking from afar with long-range railguns and salvos of guided missiles. Their ships were sleek and agile, darting through the chaos of battle like silverfish through a murky sea. They danced around the lumbering Vortex craft, peppering them with pinpoint fire and whittling away at their defenses with ruthless efficiency. Together, the three human factions battered the Vortex invasion force, forcing the aliens to pay for every mile of space with rivers of ichor and mountains of shattered chitin. The cost was high, with untold numbers of ships lost on both sides, but slowly, inexorably, the tide began to turn. The Vortex had underestimated the tenacity and sheer bloody-minded determination of their foe. They had come expecting to find a race of weaklings, ripe for conquest. Instead, they found a people who would rather die than submit, who would fight to the last man, woman, and child rather than bend the knee. Aboard the Vortex flagship, Supreme Overlord Krax raged and snarled as he watched his grand armada slowly being ground down by the furious human resistance. The bioluminescent patterns on his carapace flared crimson with anger and frustration, pulsing in time with the eldritch energies that coursed through the ship's living walls. "Impossible!" he roared, slamming his fist into the fleshy control panel. The surface rippled and shuddered under the blow but held firm. How can these primitives stand against the might of the Imperium? They should be cowering in terror before us. But even as he spoke, the human forces pressed their attack, hammering the alien fleet with renewed ferocity. The once invincible Vortex ships began to falter and break under the onslaught, their eldritch technology proving no match for the indomitable spirit of humankind. In the end, it was not superior numbers or advanced weaponry that decided the battle, but raw, unwavering courage and the unbreakable bonds of unity. The Terrans, Rus, and Yamato fought as one, their shared heritage and common cause forging them into an unstoppable force. As the last Vortex ship was reduced to a cloud of drifting wreckage, a cheer went up across the human fleet. Against all odds, they had prevailed. The first battle of the war was won, but the celebration was short-lived. The soldiers of humanity knew that this was only the beginning. The Vortex Imperium would not take this defeat lying down. They would return with even greater numbers and more terrible weapons. The road ahead would be long and bloody, a war that would span star systems and generations, but the people of Earth and her scattered colonies would face it head-on, united as never before, for they were Terran, and they would never, ever yield.